I've been playing the Texas Chainsaw game that released recently, and I have to say, I've had an absolute blast with it. I'm a big fan of these asymmetric multiplayer games. Hell, I've got near 1,000 hours on Dead by Daylight, so I've had my eye on this for a while, so let's get into it. First of all, what even is the game? It's a multiplayer only game where 4 players, the victims, must attempt to escape from 3 other players, the family. The game has a surprising amount of depth that I really wasn't expecting, if I'm being honest. There's only 3 maps, but each game will also play out in quite a similar way. There are 4 methods of escape. There's the main gate, where the victims need to turn off the generator and leave. The battery exit, where they must turn off the car battery and then leave. The pressure valve exit, where they must find a valve, add it to the pressure tank and open that exit. And finally the basement exit, where they must find a fuse, put it in the fuse box, and then escape back through the basement where they spawned. All 4 victims will spawn in the basement, alongside Leatherface, unfortunately. The other 2 killers will spawn upstairs and will remain there until the grandpa wakes up. Grandpa wakes up if the victims make too much noise, the killers feed him enough blood, or the victims open one of the basement doors. The killers that spawn upstairs must prepare for when the victims make it out of the basement during the early stage of the game. They each have their own individual abilities as well. For example, the hitchhiker can place traps down, but can also follow victims through gaps and crawl spaces that other killers can't. There's also Johnny, who I did spend a lot of time as, who can track victims' footprints to locate them in hiding. There's also, of course, Leatherface, who just revs his chainsaw around. His ability is mostly used to just destroy certain obstacles that victims would usually use to escape, and if you time his chainsaw correctly, you can deal a massive amount of damage, sometimes even one-hit killing. The victims also have their own abilities. I played this game mostly with 3 friends, and we quickly found out mains, so I can't exactly speak to the usefulness of every single victim because I haven't played as them all, but I spent most of my time as Julie, and her ability gives her a chance at a last gasp burst of energy. Other characters have abilities such as instantly breaking locks or shoulder barging killers over. The final aspect of gameplay that plays a major role in proceedings is Grandpa. As I mentioned earlier, the killers can feed Grandpa blood that they gain from hitting survivors or collecting blood from around the map. Grandpa levels up given how much blood he's given. What this does is it sends out like a sonar thing where all the killers can see the victims if they are moving. If they stand still, then they can't be seen. If they are moving, then they can. However, once you give him enough blood and he gets to the max level, then the victims will flash up anyway and the killers will be able to see where they are. So the victims must ensure that they are trying to activate the exits in a timely manner, otherwise they risk being completely exposed. Both sets of players also have loadouts that they can equip with perks. You earn these perks by spending skill points that you earn via leveling up. You can then level up these perks by using them in game. What I will say is that once you get to around level 12, 13, the rate at which you earn these skill points really slows down, and it kind of stops you from being able to experiment with as many different characters as you like, because you'll have spent most of the skill points leveling up the characters you do want to use, and also leveling up the perks that you have equipped. You can level them up to level 3. It takes a very long time, so you can't really experiment with different perks if you want to make sure these perks are leveled up, because you'll have to play a bunch of games. I think that this system needs a bit of tweaking, but I like the idea. Some of these perks are really simple, such as unlock tools flashing yellow at the start of a game. Unlock tools are very important, you basically need them for everything. But there can also be stuff such as the first few times you're detected by a grandpa, it doesn't count. You have like extra lives in that sense. I played with that perk equipped, because I went for a kind of stealth build. The killers also have perks, and for both sides it creates build potential, which is something I'm sure we'll see more of as the community learns more about the meta. The killer perks didn't really seem as strong to me. From what I saw, I mainly only leveled up Leatherface and Johnny, but they seem to mostly just be stuff like when you hit a survivor, they're highlighted for everyone else, or your endurance comes back faster, for example. Endurance is the rate at which your stamina goes down. Stamina is very important for both sides. So I've explained the basics of how the game works, but how does it actually play? It's very fun. Like most multiplayer games these days upon release, it's difficult to predict how popular this game will be in the long run. My opening week with the game was spent the same way as I presume many others was. Just learning the game. I went into this completely blind, so it was very much a learn-as-you-go experience. It felt as though both sides seemed fairly balanced. As victim, I'd escape a similar amount of times as I'd die, even though it did take me like 6 or 7 games to escape once. As killer, I'd have a similar amount of successful games as failed ones. There doesn't seem to be an abundance of strategy involved at this point, but I do feel like, even though it seems as though it's a very organic experience right now, as opposed to the more rigid formula of Dead by Daylight, for example, once the general player base has become more accustomed to the mechanics and the strategies, I feel like this may change. The game has plenty of frustrating moments as well, but it is also wildly immersive, more so than most games in the genre. Picking the lock on the final gate to safety when you can hear footsteps behind you is terrifying, as you can't actually rotate the camera behind you, so you've got no idea where they are. Time will tell with this game. If it turns out in a few weeks that one side is infinitely stronger than the other, then this game will probably die a sad death. If the game doesn't get new maps and such, this game will also die a sad death. The game's been out a week, and I've got most spawn points etched into my memory already. In a month's time, the game will feel repetitive. Texas Chainsaw doesn't have the same luxury as Dead by Daylight, in the sense that they're limited in the extra content they can provide. Dead by Daylight can license content from any horror franchise really, including Texas Chainsaw Massacre, funnily enough. Whereas here, they can only really add content related to the Texas Chainsaw films. They've done a great job with the content that's already there, but if this is all we have in, say, 3 months' time, I can't say if I think I'll still be playing. I really don't think I will, despite how fun the game has been this opening week. But as of right now, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a great time. It's chaotic as hell as a moment. I feel like this is the perfect time to play it before everybody gets used to everything, and once you have got to grips with the basics, it's an incredibly immersive and satisfying experience with a few frustrating niggles here and there, and I can absolutely recommend it. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. I hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, then please consider leaving a like, so that would greatly help me out. And if you want to see more videos from me, then you could always consider subscribing, because that would be pretty damn good. But that's all for now. Have a nice day, and goodbye.